Introduction. The samurai, the honorable fighters from ancient Japan, have made a lasting impression on the history and culture of the country. These highly skilled swordsmen, who followed a strict code of honor called Bushido, played a vital part in shaping Japan's fate and continue to inspire people all over the world. In this article, we will explore the captivating realm of the samurai, examining their past, principles, weapons, and lasting impact. The term samurai or bushi refers to experienced soldiers in Japan. In Japanese, samurai translates to one who serves, and initially, it was specifically used during the Edo period to differentiate individuals responsible for maintaining security. Eventually, it became a more widespread term encompassing all warriors in Japan. The term samurai was first mentioned in Koken Wakashu, 905–914, also known as Kokenshu for short, which is a collection of imperial Japanese poetry, waka, compiled in the Heian period, composed by Emperor Oda, 887–897, and commissioned by his son, the Emperor Daigo, 897–930, circa 905. These poems were compiled by a team of 4 poets under the supervision of Ki no Tsurayuki. Koken Wakashu, literally meaning, collection of the poems of Japan past and present Kei, is the oldest collection of poems of the imperial family. During Japan's feudal era, the samurai were a class of warriors who inherited their position. Initially, the term samurai specifically referred to the imperial guard. However, as the feudal system developed, it started encompassing the entire military class, which included daimyos and shoguns. This group constituted around 5% of the Japanese population. The samurai were often associated with the practice of harakiri. Samurai were the hereditary military nobility and officer caste of medieval and early modern Japan from the late 12th century until their abolition in the late 1870s during the Meiji era, where they emerged as a class of warriors known for their exceptional skill in combat. They were the well-paid retainers of the daimyo, the great feudal landholders. They had high prestige and special privileges. The samurai first appeared during the Heian period, 794–1185, and served as protectors of the ruling nobility. Over time, they developed their own code of conduct known as Bushido, which emphasized loyalty, honor, and self-discipline. Following the passing of a law in 1629, samurai on official duty were required to practice daisho, wear 2 swords. Samurai were granted kirisut gomen, the right to kill anyone of a lower class in certain situations. Some important samurai and other figures in Japanese history wanted others to believe all of them engaged combatants using Bushido codes of martial virtues and followed various cultural ideals about what samurai should act like. The last will and testament before Harakiri. Harakiri is also known as seppuku. The literal translation is cutting off the entrails. This act was known to samurai fighters who believed in the controls of the Bushido law, and they resorted to it to avoid falling into the hands of the enemy or to erase the shame of defeat. It was considered that the samurai performing this work would atone for his mistake and be a sign of nobility and obedience. Often a samurai would appoint a confidant to cut off his head with a stroke of a sword after ripping out his own stomach. Rituals. The sword used in harakiri. Harakiri rituals are specific, and some of them were performed in public if they were planned in advance, that is, other than those that take place on the battlefield. Before harakiri, the samurai washes, wears white clothes, and eats whatever food he likes. When he finishes eating, his sword is placed in front of him on the eating plate. A warrior usually prepared himself for death by writing a poem. With his assistant next to him, the samurai opens his kimono, takes the sword, and sticks it in his stomach, moving it from left to right. After that, a person called kaishakunin strikes the neck of the samurai who performed the harakiri with a sword so that it separates his neck, leaving his head connected to his body with a small portion of flesh. This requires such high craftsmanship that no warrior can do it except after a lot of training, and this process is called dakikobe, a ceremonial form of suicide. Enjoying high status, they were granted special privileges such as the right to carry 2 swords. In their conduct, the samurai abided by the principles of Bushido, following a code of martial virtues, displaying indifference to pain, and demonstrating unwavering loyalty. Bushido. Traditional armor of a Japanese warrior, bushi, from the Middle Ages, Azuchi Momoyama period, Yokohama Historical Museum, Japan. Bushido, the way of the warrior, is a set of moral laws followed by warriors, bushi, in Japan during the Middle Ages. It was codified during the Edo period, 1603 to 1867 AD. These teachings were influenced by Zen Buddhism and the Confucian doctrine. Codification of teachings. Yamaga Soko, 1622 to 1685 AD, was the first to expose and explain the principles of Bushido in a collection of his letters. The latter equated the samurai man on the one hand with the virtuous man according to the conception of Confucian philosophy. He believed that the role of these warriors was to become an example of virtues and high morals for the lower classes of the people. Without neglecting the role of one of the basic virtues in Confucianism, benevolence or righteousness, Soko highlighted the virtue of uprightness and made it a basic obligation and duty. The book, Hagakure, Under the Shadow of Leaves, which was written in 1716 AD by a warrior from the Saga province, Yamamoto Tsunemoto, is considered one of the most important works dealing with the teachings of Bushido. The book highlights the virtues of the samurai, who must lay down his life in the service of his master, and sacrifice it if necessary. Teachings. Commander Akashi Gadeo writes a line of poetry, before performing seppuku after losing a battle, a tattoo dating back to the Edo period by artist Yasutoshi Tsukioka, 1890 AD. The teachings of Bushido dealt with two aspects of the lives of warriors, their experience of wars and fighting on the one hand, and then their daily public life on the other hand. The teachings of Bushido focus on developing the combat morale of the warrior, as well as the physical condition and combat skills. These teachings motivate the warriors to show courage in front of the opponent, and to show loyalty, honesty, and the spirit of sacrifice. This is in the military aspect, but it also dealt with their daily lives by urging them to be polite. Humility towards others, simplicity, generosity, asceticism, austerity, and other good qualities. Similar to Confucian teachings, Bushido emphasized filial piety, and considered it the highest honor for a warrior to faithfully serve his master until his death. However, the samurai must have an absolute commitment to obey his master, even at the cost of harm that could be caused to his parents and family. The warrior is supposed to make some decisive decisions, especially if some of these principles conflict with each other, duty and loyalty, for example. He may have to refuse to comply with authority, as he must put his duties above all else, even if it costs him to break the law. In some cases, a samurai must prove his loyalty, preserve his honor, and atone for wrongs against his rulers by taking his own life, seppuku. The basic virtues that warriors must possess have been limited to 7 things. Straightness, gi. Courage, u. Benevolence and righteousness, jin. Respect, rei. Honesty, makoto. Honor, meo. Devotion and loyalty, chugi. His influence on art and literature. The authors of the No plays, kabuki and bunraku, in addition to the writers of novels, quoted some of the real events experienced by some warriors, such as the adventures of the 47 Ronin, who avenged their master Aku, after his enemies forced him to commit suicide by seppuku, via they were eventually caught, and it was decided that they would be punished by being forced to voluntarily commit suicide in the manner of their master. These events were narrated while highlighting the epic situation and heroic adventures that resulted from the warrior's commitment to these moral teachings. Assets. The origins of Bushido go back to the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333 AD. After the fall of the central system and the emergence of the role of the great leaders in the provinces, daimyo, the country entered a state of civil war, and this was accompanied by the emergence of a new class of warriors. They rose, motivated by religious teachings, Zen doctrine and Confucianism, established a moral code that they obligated themselves to follow. The teachings were transmitted orally, and the latter developed according to the changes experienced by the warrior class over time. The term Bushido was first used during the period of civil wars that the country experienced in the 16th century, the late Muromachi period. Modern period. These teachings continued to be practiced during the 18th and 19th centuries AD, and were the source of inspiration for samurai men after they turned to other professions. Some of them established schools to teach martial arts, and others began working for a government as professors teaching the principles of sword fencing to new recruits. Security and political conditions were stable. The new era forced them to abandon fighting, see the Edo period, and most of the martial arts known in Japan, such as kendo, originated during this period. In the middle of the 19th century AD, the teachings of Bushido spread to become general principles that went beyond the boundaries of the warrior class to include the rest of the other classes. After the warrior class was banned during the reforms, 1871 AD, see Meiji Restoration, and Shinto was established as the official state religion, Bushido became the discipline of the entire nation. His teachings were introduced into the new educational system, and he began to teach to the new generation. He became the mainstay of the morals education curriculum, although it was formulated according to the new circumstances. The feudal lord, who had to be obeyed and sacrificed for his sake, was replaced by the emperor. Imperialism and World War. The teachings of Bushido contributed greatly to the development of the Japanese nationalist spirit, to the point of extremism. If we add to it the teachings of Shinto, which consider the Japanese emperor to be a descendant of the sun gods, we can understand the reason for the Japanese's superiority over other Asian peoples, and their rush for the first time in their history outside their borders and then to occupy and exploitation of other Asian countries. During World War II, these teachings were the motivation behind the high morale of combatants, such as kamikaze pilots and civilians alike. Some see this mentality as what forced the United States to use atomic weapons for the first time. After the end of World War II, the Americans banned some martial arts because they encouraged extremism, according to their interpretation. In the tranquil Edo period from 1603 to 1868, the samurai rose to power and assumed leadership over the daimyo estates, acquiring knowledge and skills in administration. By the 1870s, samurai households accounted for 5% of the population. However, the Meiji Revolution brought an end to their feudal responsibilities, causing them to transition into professional and business roles. Despite this change, the samurai continues to be a significant part of Japanese popular culture, leaving a lasting impact. Founding. The Japanese Haina dynasty lasted for approximately 4 centuries. At first, it was a period of great success and wealth, during which art, poetry, and elegant handwriting thrived. The new capital city was Heiankyo, now known as Kyoto, but as time went on, the influence and power of the aristocracy in the rural areas grew. These noble individuals began to prepare for potential conflicts by assembling groups of skilled warriors. In return, they offered their services to those in power. As a result, a type of feudal system emerged. These warriors, equipped with weapons, came to be known as samurai. They adhered to a strict code of honor, similar in some ways to the knights of medieval Europe. Eventually, in 1160 AD, they were able to overthrow and dismantle the Haina dynasty. Kyoto. Kyoto is a city in Japan. The capital of urban Kyoto Prefecture, it is located south of the island of Honshu and close to Osaka. It is considered one of the most ancient cities in Japan, hosting the imperial court for more than 1,000 years, 794 to 1868 AD. Its population was approximately 1,466,163 people, 2003. Geography. Kyoto is located on a plain surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, north, west and east. Because of this terrain, the expansion movement extended to the south. It is crossed by the Katsura and Kamo rivers. History. Gion's buildings still preserve the 19th-century architecture. Kyoto, which was known in the past as Heiankyo or Capital of Peace, was founded by Emperor Kamo, the latter of whom was looking for a new place to get away from his opponents. The city remained the imperial capital of Japan without interruption from 794 AD until 1868 AD. The imperial capital has a unique characteristic compared to other Japanese cities, as it was designed according to the design of the Chinese capital of the same period. It takes a square shape. Its streets are oriented according to the 4 geographical directions. She was lucky to pass safely through all the periods of war that the country witnessed. However, this did not prevent it from being deprived of its political role in favor of other cities. The emperors ruled the country only formally. The city suffered widespread destruction in the Unin Wars of 1467 to 1477, and did not regain its shape until the middle of the 16th century. Samurai battles between factions moved to the streets, involving nobles and religious factions as well. Palaces were turned into castles, and deep ditches dug around the city caused many buildings to burn. The city has not seen such widespread destruction since. After the beginning of the reforms and during the Meiji Restoration period, in 1868 AD the imperial court was moved to Edo and renamed Tokyo, where the government also settled. The large number of historical monuments there, temples and others, prompted the Americans to leave them alone while they launched air bombing campaigns on Japanese territory. World War II. The United States studied the possibility of targeting Kyoto with a nuclear bomb at the end of World War II, eventually deciding to remove the city from its target list. Landmarks. Kinkakuji Temple in Kyoto. Ginkakuji Temple. The city remained for a long time the religious capital and a distinguished cultural center, possessing more than 2,000 landmarks, temples, Shinto shrines and some other palaces. Among the most famous of these landmarks are, the Golden Pavilion or Kinkakuji, built in 1397 AD, and the Silver Pavilion or Ginkakuji, 1482 AD, and they are considered among the most important evidence of the Ashikaga shogunate period, c. Muromachi period. In addition to some other landmarks, Katsura Imperial City, Nijo Palace, Kyoto University, founded in 1897 AD, and many other museums, and Kyoto today is considered the largest. Economy and industries. The city gained its reputation thanks to the skill of its craftsmen, and its most famous industries include silk, bronze, ceramics, jewelry and engravings, embroidery, and varnish, a resinous substance extracted from trees and used to paint famous Japanese statues and antiques. The Kyoto region is the least industrialized compared to the rest of the country. There are some factories in it, aircraft spare parts, chemicals, and electrical equipment. Tourism forms an important base in Kyoto's economy. The city's cultural heritage makes it a tourist destination for schools all over Japan, and many foreign tourists. In 2007 it was chosen as the second most beautiful city in Japan. Bushi or samurai. The terms bushi and samurai are mistakenly interchanged. The meanings of these two words can be traced back to different periods of Japanese history, and they also correspond to distinct occupations. The bushi, who emerged in 1185 AD, held the position of de facto leaders during a time of turmoil in the country. Their distinct characteristic was their usage of armor. Their lives were consumed by unceasing warfare, and their destiny was shaped on the battlefield. They consistently sought to expand the territories controlled by their clans. In 1615 AD, officials known as samurai emerged, bearing weapons and akin to modern-day police forces. They were typically attired in light clothing called kimono and served under overlords. These samurai constituted an independent class, pledging loyalty to their first master, the shogun, and working to establish his rule. In addition to governing land and safeguarding the interests of local lords, they were recognizable by their traditional head coverings and dual swords. Advancing through military ranks, each samurai received a portion of rice commensurate to their position. However, the samurai gradually lost their power when Japan abolished the feudal system in 1871 AD. During their peak, they were renowned as the fiercest warriors worldwide. First Era. In the Nara period, 710 to 784 AD, warriors were known as Mononovo. However, the term Bushi emerged during the Heian period, 7841–185 AD, and was used to differentiate regular fighters enlisted by the imperial family or powerful clans to govern regions and provinces, Shuan. Originally, the word samurai referred to the imperial guards stationed in Kyoto, the capital, who were entrusted with safeguarding the imperial family and esteemed noble families. After the Heian period came to an end, the influence of the court started to diminish, and the nation fell into turmoil with warfare becoming prominent in faraway regions. During this time, the Bushi played a significant part. The strength of certain prominent clans like the Taira, Minamoto, and Hojo began to rise, ultimately leading to intense confrontations between them. In the year 1185, the samurai were involved in the naval battle of Dan no Yura. This battle marked the victory of the Minamoto clan, led by Yoritamo, who was then declared shogun. This event marked the start of the Kamakura period, which lasted from 1185 to 1333 AD. Over time, the term samurai came to encompass not only warriors serving the shogun but also the grand chiefs known as daimyo. During the period when the Hojo clan lost power and the Ashikaga clan came into authority as shoguns, 1338 to 1573 AD, the previous political structure started to crumble. Provincial governors started gaining more influence, causing a decline in central authority, eventually leading them to rule independently. These individuals gradually transformed into warlords, distancing themselves from the government in Kyoto. They expanded their laws and control over the surrounding lands. Weakness was no longer tolerated, as anyone displaying vulnerability would be swiftly overthrown by a more powerful ruler. The concept of war became the accepted practice in feudal Japan. Towards the end of the Muromachi period, the nation experienced destructive conflicts, with the final one being the provincial wars, Sengoku Jidai, that lasted from 1477 to 1573 AD. These conflicts came to an end when three influential leaders united the country under a single flag, which is known as the Azuchi Momoyama period. Edo period. The wakizashi sword traces its origins to the Edo period. It is distinguished by its compact size and gently arched blade. Alongside the katana, it completes the Daisho ensemble, which is the conventional gear of a warrior. During this time, there was a shift in the prominence of warriors, as the traditional fighting men, Bushi, gave way to the rise of the security men, samurai. Instead of wearing armor and carrying heavy equipment, they began wearing traditional clothing like the kimono. The only remnants of their past era were the two daisho they still carried. The start of the Tokugawa shogunate marked a return to political stability in the country, initiating what is known as the Edo period, 1603 to 1868 AD. The new government aimed to establish stability for the newly formed social classes. As a result of the removal of feudal strongholds, many warriors were left without lords and became ronin. However, the government permitted them to possess weapons and have a family name, unlike the peasant class. In order to receive this privilege, they were required to abandon their rural homes and reside with a provincial governor in his palace. In exchange for their loyalty, they were provided with a fixed amount of rice, known as koku, as monetary currency was not yet established, and were previously given a stronghold that included a designated area of land. These warriors transformed into government officials responsible for ensuring security in the provinces and were compensated with a monthly salary. Due to the changed security circumstances and limited chances to utilize their military expertise, numerous samurai found employment in governmental roles, trade, or education. Drawing inspiration from their esteemed martial history, these warriors cultivated unique spiritual principles that were specific to their social class. One of their notable accomplishments during this time was the creation of a new ethical code called Bushido, or Bushido, the way of the warrior, which they all collectively pledged to adhere to. Additionally, the sakura flower, cherry blossom tree, became their new emblem. Prior to a battle during the Boshin War, samurai warriors from Satsuma are seen examining a set of maps in an old photograph. During the Kamakura period, 1185 to 1333, the samurai gained more prominence as a military force and played a crucial role in defending Japan against Mongol invasions. This period also witnessed the rise of powerful samurai clans, such as the Minamoto and Taira, who often engaged in bitter conflicts for dominance. The Ashikaga shogunate, 1338–1573, marked a significant turning point for the samurai. With the declining power of the emperor, the shogun emerged as the de facto ruler of Japan, and the samurai became the backbone of the shogunate's military force. This era saw the refinement of samurai warfare techniques and the development of various schools of martial arts. The 16th century witnessed the arrival of European traders and the introduction of firearms in Japan. This led to a transformation in samurai warfare tactics, as they had to adapt to the changing technology. The Sengoku period, 1467–1603, was characterized by intense civil wars between different samurai factions, as they vied for control over territories. The Edo period, 1603–1868, brought about a period of relative peace and stability under the Tokugawa shogunate. During this time, the samurai's role shifted from active warriors to administrative and bureaucratic officials. They were required to maintain their military skills but primarily served as a symbol of authority and prestige. However, with the arrival of Western powers in the mid-19th century, Japan underwent rapid modernization. The samurai class faced significant challenges as their traditional way of life clashed with the changing times. In 1873, the Meiji government officially abolished the samurai class, ending their centuries-long dominance in Japanese society. Despite their decline, the samurai legacy remains an integral part of Japanese culture and history. Their code of Bushido continues to inspire notions of honor, discipline, and loyalty. Today, samurai are revered as legendary warriors, their stories immortalized in literature, film, and art. 1185. Minamoto vs. Taira. The Genpei War between the Minamoto and Taira clans marked a significant turning point for the samurai. The Minamoto emerged victorious, establishing the Kamakura shogunate and solidifying their control over Japan. This period saw the rise of the samurai as a ruling class and the establishment of the warrior code known as Bushido. 1333. Ashikaga shogunate. The Ashikaga shogunate was established by Ashikaga Takauji, leading to a new era in samurai history. This period saw a shift in focus from military prowess to cultural pursuits, such as poetry, tea ceremonies, and the patronage of the arts. However, internal conflicts and power struggles weakened the shogunate over time. 1467. Unin War. The Unin War marked the beginning of the Sengoku period, known as the Age of Warring States. This era was characterized by intense warfare and political chaos, with numerous daimyo, feudal lords, vying for power. Samurai played a crucial role in these conflicts, fighting for their lords and engaging in duels to prove their worth. 1600. Battle of Sekigahara. The Battle of Sekigahara brought an end to the Sengoku period and ushered in the beginning of the Tokugawa shogunate. This period, also known as the Edo period, brought relative peace and stability to Japan. The samurai were still an influential class, but their role shifted to that of administrators and bureaucrats. During the Meiji period, also known as the Meiji Restoration, marked the end of the samurai's political power. With the overthrow of the Tokugawa shogunate, and the process of reforms was initiated. One crucial action taken by the government was the prohibition of the warrior class in the year 1871 AD, along with the revocation of all their privileges. Many samurai became disillusioned and faced economic hardships as their way of life came to an end. The chieftains, referred to as daimyo, were obligated to surrender their lands and possessions to the emperor, while samurai were strictly forbidden from carrying weapons. To compensate for their loss, the government provided these individuals with a special grant that was equivalent to their previous salaries. These measures were meant to serve as a temporary solution until they could assimilate into the new society. Modern period. Despite the conclusion of their ancient duties, the samurai class persisted in assuming positions of authority in Japan. As the ruling elite, they exerted control over the nation until the conclusion of World War II. Notably, some samurai descendants established prominent industrial enterprises and commercial banks, contributing significantly to Japan's evolution into an industrial powerhouse. Because of the altered security conditions and limited opportunities to utilize their military skills, many samurai sought employment in government positions, trade, or education. Taking inspiration from their respected martial past, these warriors developed distinct spiritual values relevant to their societal status. One of their notable achievements during this period was the establishment of a fresh set of moral guidelines known as Bushido or Bushido, the warrior's path, which they all agreed to follow. Furthermore, the sakura flower, cherry blossom tree, became their new symbol. After being imbued with some Confucian teachings, the principles of Bushido spread throughout Japanese society. Japanese companies brought the concepts of effort, loyalty, and perseverance back to their advantage, and educational institutions spread them among the new generation. Modern media contribute to spreading samurai culture, through films, television, theaters, manga, and others. Samurai men from the Edo period occupy first place. While the image of the bushi, from the Middle Ages, is almost erased. Conclusion. The samurai, with their unwavering dedication to the code of Bushido, have left an indomitable mark on Japan's history and culture. Their legacy continues to inspire admiration and fascination, reminding us of the timeless virtues of honor, courage, and discipline. The story of the samurai is a testament to the enduring power of a warrior's spirit and the impact of their noble way of life on the world.